everyone. Good morning. Hello to you all on this Tuesday, July 29. It is Sarah Shipton here from Scrapbooking with Sarah, and I'm coming live to you today with this week's Technique Tuesday class, and I'm going to be sharing with you how you can create this fun stamped pattern on your cardstock to create your own patterned cardstock or your own patterned designer series paper through the technique of stamping for this week's Technique Tuesday. Now, we are creating a double page layout for this week's scrapbooking challenge. I'm coming live to you a little earlier today, this morning on Tuesday. As many of you know, where I live in Adelaide, it is cold and wet and wintry at the moment, and my house is eastern facing. So the light in the morning is much better than it is in the afternoon. So I've come live to you a little bit earlier this morning. So we've got this beautiful natural light coming in through my window where I can share today's technique with you. So we are creating a double page scrapbook layout for this week's scrapbooking challenge. I have gone back to basics. We are going to the OG how-to pattern book, Reflections, from my time as a maker with Close to My Heart. And these back to basics scrapbooking patterns, you guys are really loving them. So I'm so excited that you are enjoying the simplicity and the ease of these particular patterns. We are turning a single page layout into a double page layout, and we are working with pattern 1G, which is on page 20. So if you are in my Facebook group, I have uploaded the pattern and the instructions for your cutting, but I'm going to walk you through it verbally if you are catching up on my YouTube channel. So for your base pages of your scrapbook layout, you're going to need 2 sheets of either cardstock or designer series paper. I have opted for cardstock for my base, and this is in the color Old Olive. The cardstock is actually two-toned, so we've got Old Olive here, and if I was to turn that over, you can see that you've got a lighter tone of the Old Olive cardstock, and this just gives you a little bit more flexibility with your scrapbooking or your paper crafting, card making, whatever takes your fancy. So I'm using Old Olive as my base pages for my cardstock, and you can see that I've opted for that as my base pages instead of the dimensions that we've got here in the instructions. I did give you a little tip in my Facebook group yesterday, but I am going to walk you through that today. So I've got 2 sheets of 12 by 12 inch cardstock for my base. I have also cut, I have worked with the alternate pattern where we've got 3 4 by 6 inch photos coming through the middle of your scrapbooking layout here. Okay, I've added a flip flap, and I'll take this out of my memory protector. A little tip I want to give you with the flip flap, when I'm deciding where to put the orientation of my flip flap, so it can come out to the left. If I was to stick it on this side, it could come out to the right. With your 4 by 6 inch flip flaps, you're also going to get them in a 10 pack, and you can have the adhesive strip running horizontally on the flip flap, or you can have it running vertically, okay, for your 4 by 6 inch photo. So in that instance, you could have the flip flap coming up or coming down. And quite often what I do is I have a look at my photo, and you can see I didn't want to cut this particular photo down, so I left it 4 by 6, but I had this bit of kind of waste of space here. So I've opted to stick my flip flap on the left hand side here, because this is where the adhesive strip is, and you can't really see it. Like, it is kind of like transparent, but if you're looking up quite closely, this is why I've opted to stick the flip flap on this side of the photo, because the adhesive strip is covering this little gap here. Sometimes, like if I was to put it on this side here, then that would kind of cover half of my face. So it really is, I guess, a personal preference, but I do like to give those little tips when I'm figuring out what side of my photo I'm going to put my flip flap on. So I've opted for the alternate pattern where I've got all my 4 by 6 inch photos running through the middle of the page. You can see here I had some photos that I was able to cut down. So if you don't have another 4 by 6 inch portrait photo, I've cut 2 photos here at 3 by 4 inches, and then I've been able to fill that space where a 4 by 6 inch photo would go. Now, because I've opted for this pattern where my photos are running through the middle of the page, you're going to have some dimensions here. So this is Timid Tiger, a pattern paper. I'm working with the Celebratory Sips Sweet Collection. And rather than have my paper all the way through the middle here where I'm being covered by photos, you will note that one of the dimensions is 8.5 by 12 inch. Now, you're going to be covering that with either more paper or with photos. So I didn't cut piece A at 8.5 by 12. I've actually done the math and figured out how much gap I was going to have through here. So I've actually cut my strips of Timid Tiger paper, and you can see here, I cut them at 1.25 inches, and then my photo is stuck over either end by about 1/4 inch, okay? So you're going to put, if you do this pattern, you'll have one strip of pattern paper or cardstock flush against the bottom of your cardstock base. And then this other piece of paper, I have aligned that at the 8.5 inches, okay? And then I've been able to stick my photos across the top. So underneath these photos is my old olive cardstock, okay? I didn't feel the need to waste 2 sheets of pattern paper at 8.5 inches high and then cover that all with photos. So that's just a little tip there for you, okay? So I've cut 4 strips of paper at 1.25 inches, and then, or maybe it was 1.5. Yeah, and then I've covered my photo with that, okay? So you'll be able to do that as well if you don't want to waste your paper. If you're doing the original pattern, then you're going to need another piece of cardstock or pattern paper running at 6 inches, which will go through the middle, and then you'll have your 5 by 5 inch photos sitting across the top. That would allow you to have 4 photos running left to right on your scrapbook page. And then you're going to have 2 strips of 1/2 inch papers. So I've cut these at 1/2 inch wide and 12 inches in length, and I've sat them just above the top of my Timid Tiger pattern. And then these squares and rectangle across the top, you're going to cut these in various sizes. Now, if you decide not to do this kind of square pattern, it's a title topper, you could replace this with some alphabet dies or stamps or stickers. You can see here they've got a whole range of different stickers as their title topper across the top here. I have actually used the Blackberry Bliss cardstock, and I have run my cardstock, I've cut my cardstock down, and I've run my cardstock through the Glass and Gardens embossing folders. So these coordinate with the Celebratory Sips Suite. You get 2 embossing folders in the pack. I've actually demonstrated the glass one last week, so feel free to go back and have a watch on that video. This week I wanted to do the floral, okay? So I've cut my cardstock at 3 inches. I've run that through my embossing folder. And then in some instances, I've actually used both the positive and the negative of my cardstock. So if you're going to do that kind of technique and you're using two-tone cardstock, you're going to want to make sure that your cardstock is the right way up when you run that through your embossing folder, depending on whether you want the positive or the negative of the embossing pattern shown. And then what I've done is I've cut them down in various sizes. So these rectangles, I cut that at 3 by 2 inches. So I already had the width of my pattern for my embossing folder there. I cut these 2 at 3 by 2 inches. And then I've just popped these middle ones up using some Stampin' Dimensionals. And then these squares are at 2 by 2 inches. And I've just tucked them on an angle and underneath the middle rectangle. And then these smaller squares on the outside, I've cut them at 1.5 by 1.5. So a really fun way to create a title topper by embossing your cardstock first and then cutting that down. You can see that these size embossing folders are really designed for card making because they are a smaller embossing folder. So you have less pattern base to work with. But I did demonstrate how you could use this on a 12 by 12 inch layout last week. And then of course, this has been a fun tip, just cutting them up in squares to create my title topper across the top. Now, I have also done this technique here where we're going to stamp on the cardstock. So I'm going to be demonstrating that to you today. and I have used the stamp set Celebrate Together, and this particular stamp set is from the Scrapbooking from Scratch range. So I have created the Celebrate Together Scrapbooking Workshop Kit. I made 3 double page layouts with that kit, and then there are some individual products that you can purchase from the Scrapbooking from Scratch range that coordinate with Celebrate Together. The really cool thing is that Celebrate Together also coordinates with the current online exclusive, which you'll find in my online store, Celebratory Sips. Okay, so I'm going to show you the Scrapbooking Workshop Kit layouts today, and then also where you can find these additional Scrapbooking from Scratch products in your annual catalogue as well. Now, in terms of the colour choice that I've decided to go with today, so I've got these photos here. These were taken on a date day at lot 100. I have actually scrapbooked some of these photos already, but I had these leftover ones just of Darren and I, and some photos of the food and the wine tasting, and I thought it would be fun to do another layout with these photos, but in a different colour palette. So I want to introduce you, some of you have seen this before. This is called the Colour Coach. And this is actually a interactive wheel that can assist you in coordinating your different color combinations together. And so what I did, I laid all my photos out, and you can see that there are some heavy red, oranges and orange colors through my photos here, in my dress and in the background and on the table here. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. So with this interactive wheel, I was able to section it out, so I was looking at different color combinations. So I could have gone with complementary. So I've used the red, orange and the orange as like my base kind of colors. I could have gone with the complementary, which is the opposite side of the color wheel. And, well, if I'd have spun that around here, sorry, let me get the complementary section up for you. I could have coordinated that here with some blues or some blue greens. I could have gone for the monochromatic option, where I'm taking colors from the same sort of color family. If I spin this around, now I can never pronounce this word, analogous. If I had gone with this particular color palette, then I'm taking 3 different colors that are side by side each other on the color wheel. I thought I would go with something where I am picking colors from the Celebratory Sips color palette, and I've opted for the triadic. So I've taken my red, oranges and my oranges. I've then taken some of my violets and then some of my greens. And I've gone to the coordinating colors for the Celebrate Together Scrapbooking Workshop Kit. There's actually a 12 by 12 sheet of card that comes in your workshop kit. And also, if you were to purchase the Celebratory Sips Designer Series paper on its own, on the little bit of card, I actually cut this out and I stick it on top of my bag, and it tells me all of the different coordinating colors that are part of that particular suite. And so I've opted to go for the triadic, and I've brought in some Blackberry Bliss, and then I've also brought in some of the Old Olive, okay, because they were colors that coordinated with that suite. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you here. And these are probably not colors that I would have thought to coordinate together. But if you look really closely through this floral pattern here, which was one of the Designer Series papers, and then in my Scrapbooking Workshop Kit, you also get a sheet of these little journal cards that you can cut down in 3x4 and 3x2, which looks super cool. This is like a little journal box. I've actually stamped a day to remember from the Celebrate Together stamp set, and I've stamped that on top of my little journal box there as well, okay? So you can see that some of the colors here all coordinate. So not particularly a range of colors I would necessarily have thought to put together, but by using my Color Coach wheel, I found this really, really handy. Now, the really cool thing about this, if you've got a copy of last year's annual catalogue, there is a paper version of this Color Coach in your catalogue, but you can also purchase the Color Coach wheel as well, okay? So I will put links to all of the products that I'm demonstrating and sharing with you today in the comment section of this video after I post it. But let's get into the creative portion of the layout. I'm going to take my memory protector out of here. The other stamping that I've done, so I've used the little floral pattern, which I'm going to demonstrate. We've stamped A Day to Remember. And then there are these other two little, an arrow stamp and a little kind of like bookmark stamp. And then there are some small sentiments which you can stamp on the arrow or inside this little tab here. So I've opted for my colours to coordinate with my papers. I've gone with Old Olive and Timid Tiger. I don't have Blackberry Bliss as of yet. So I've just stamped the little arrows and the tabs, and then using my jet black Stays On ink, I've stamped some of the little sentiments inside the arrows. So we've got memories, this happened, and what a day. I didn't have any room left over for a journaling box as such. So this is a fun technique I love to do with my journaling is I've got leftover, I have a scrap bag of white willow cardstock that I keep handy. And I've just trimmed these down at about 1/4 of an inch. And then I write on them and then I cut them off at different lengths. Writing on these 1/4 of an inch strips is really fun too, because if you make a mistake, you can just cut it off and then start a new line. So I've just journaled here, and then I've stuck them straight onto my layout here, and then the date down the bottom. Okay, so let's get into the stamping part of today. I'm going to demonstrate the making the pattern here with the stamp. I'm going to grab my 12 by 12 inch Versamat. We'll just get that up a little so you can see that. And then you can see that my mat got warped. I'm very sad about that. I've got some Old Olive cardstock here. Now this technique I really love, where you stamp the same ink color onto the cardstock. So I'm using the Old Olive ink on the Old Olive cardstock. You're also going to want to have some scrap paper. This is the Stampin' Up! Grid paper. You can actually purchase this grid paper as well. So you're going to want to have some scrap paper underneath you for the stamping, because with this particular stamp, you will need to go off the edge of your cardstock at the top, and then also on the sides here as well. Okay. And now I figured out the other thing you want to do if you're going to do this stamping technique where you're creating your own pattern on the cardstock, you want to make sure that you stamp down enough so then when you put your pattern paper over the top you're going to cover, you've made sure that you've stamped enough underneath it. So what I did when I did my math and I added up the 2 strips, so we've got, this would have been 8.5 plus this 1/2 inch is 9. So I know that I need to stamp at least 3 inches down to then be able to cover this over the top of my stamping. Okay, I hope that made sense. So this is why I've got my Versamat out, and I made sure that when I did the stamping, I went about 3 inches down. Okay, so I'm going to eyeball this. I don't get too fussy with my measurements, I will admit. So we're going to open up our photopolymer stamp set, and I'm just going to take the one off the carrier sheet that I'm using today, which is this floral one here. Oh, I should have just taken that whole thing off. So we'll take this off, and then I'm just going to pop this on my block. I've got a rectangular size block here. Now, I did actually stamp from the top and I went down because it was easier for me, and it will be again today using this video. Otherwise, I'm going to have to come right up here, and then I'm going to have my head in the video, which you are not going to want to see. So because there is some love hearts here and the stamp is actually facing up a certain way, I'm just going to turn that around to stamp it as if that's going to be at the top of my layout. A little trick for you when you're opening the stamp pads is to put both of your thumbs on this back section where the hinge is and just press down, and that will pop the lid up, and then you can slide that into its sheet there. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up a little bit because I need to stamp the first bit off of the cardstock. Can you see that okay? Sonia and Veronica, just give me a thumbs up if you can see all of that okay in the video. That looks good. All right, so I'm just tapping. Now, because this is the Stampin' Up! Ink pads are quite juicy, and they're a felt ink pad as well, so they can be a little spongy. So you just need to give it a couple of taps. You don't actually need to apply pressure or tap in there. I'm going to turn that around, and then you can see here with the stamp, I'm going to need to go off the edges of the pages just a little bit to do that first stamp, and you can see that we are going to come off the edge. Now, the really cool thing about this stamp is it's kind of like a border stamp. So when you're doing your stamping, you can actually feed your stamp, the pattern of it, into where you've stamped previously, okay? And the really cool thing with this particular pattern is that you don't need to get too hung up about it being perfect, because it's just going to end up being like, no one's going to look that closely to see where maybe I've got more of a gap at one end than the other with my stamping, okay? I promise you. So don't you stress too much about that at all. All right, so we've got the first row along the top, and you remember that I'm going to need to come about 3 inches down. So I'm going to ink up my stamp again, and then I'm going to feed that in here and stamp that down. Okay, so now we are lining up our stamp so it matches both the top row that I've already stamped before with my pattern, and then feeding that into here. And you can see as that dries, look at this when it's like really wet. Once the ink actually settles into the cardstock, you can see it ends up being much lighter. Okay, so if you stamp something and think, oh my gosh, I don't like that, just let it sit and dry, and then come back to it and see what you think about it afterwards if you're not initially sure. But this just creates a really, cute, fun pattern bit there. Now, you can see I've dropped my stamp, and then I've ended up almost with like this second generation stamping. If that was to bother you, then you want to make sure that you stick your squares or your stickers or whatever you're going to put as your title topper. You're going to stick that over the top there. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm just going to do one tiny little stamping there, just so that meets in. Okay, so let's measure this up. I think I need to do one more. Yes, I do. All right, so I need to come up to 3 inches to make sure that that is going to be all covered. So we'll come back to here, and then we'll meet that up again as well. And then I'm going to show you, after I've stamped this, how to clean your stamp set. Oh, not your stamp set, just the stamp that's on this block. I'm going to show you how to clean that afterwards. I'm just going to do one tiny little one on the end here so we can see those 2 flowers. All right, so I'm going to pop that to the side, and you can see here I've now got my border, and if I'm to line that up, I am perfect. All right, I'm just under the 9 inches. So when I go to do this pattern with my cardstock or my designer series paper, this bottom section here is going to get covered. So you're not even going to know that that's actually there. So isn't that clever? I love that. So they're my tips for you. Make sure you've got some scratch paper handy to stamp off on that. And also make sure, well, you don't have to. You could have done any other colour. Like you could do, I could have done, you know, Timber Tiger on the old olive, but it probably wouldn't have stood out as well. To clean your stamps, you're going to need your Stampin' Scrub, and you're going to need your Stampin' Mist. Okay, so this is a specially formulated cleaner for your stamps. We're going to open this up, and you can see that there's 2 pads on the left and the right. In this bottom little corner here is a symbol with some raindrops, and in this bottom little corner here is a symbol with a sun. So the raindrops is for wet, the sun is for dry. I'm going to spritz some of my stamp cleaner on my scrub there on the wet side, and then I'm going to clean off my stamp on the wet side, and then I'm going to dry that off on the dry side. Okay, so if I was to show you here now with my scrap paper, all right, your stamp is clean. Okay, so I'm going to take my stamp off its block, and I'm going to pop it back on its carrier sheet, and then put that protective sheet over the top there like so, and then that can go back into my stamp case there like so. Okay, so that's how I like to clean my stamps. You can also use a stamp chamois. When I transitioned over to Stampin' Up, I did try the stamp chamois, and I just preferred the scrub and the mist. So it's really just a personal preference. It's whatever you feel works best for you. Okay, so that's how I've created my stamped pattern there. I'm going to pop that to the side and come back to my layout. So I stamped all of my base pages of my cardstock first, And then I put my papers and my photos on over the top. So a really gorgeous layout. Super, super happy with it. And I want to share with you in the catalogue, you've got your copy of your annual catalogue here. Let's just pop that to the side. So I'm going to refer you to the Scrapbooking Workshop kits. So this Scrapbooking Workshop kit, Celebrate Together, is the kit that I'm going to be featuring at my workshops for August. You're going to create 3 double-page layouts, and I'm going to share those layouts with you shortly because I have already created them. You've got your featured colours here. It includes everything that comes in the kit, and then with every Scrapbooking Workshop kit, we teach you an optional artistic technique. And this one is adding details with embossing powder. So you're going to see me doing this in some of the videos for August. If you would like to do the optional artistic technique and play with some of the embossing powders, there is a list of additional products here that you'll need to make sure that you've got on hand, okay? Now, the really cool thing about these Scrapbooking Workshop kits is this particular kit. I'm going to turn to the back here, and I'm in the Scrapbooking from Scratch section. So this actually starts on pages 64 and 65. It runs through different ways that you can scrapbook. And then this particular range, Celebrate Together, as you can see, coordinates with the Scrapbooking Workshop kit, Celebrate Together, okay? So if you are someone that prefers to scrapbook from scratch or does other types of paper crafting, you can actually purchase the Designer Series paper on its own. It doesn't show you this here in the catalogue, but you will find it on my online store. You can purchase the Designer Series paper on its own, or you can purchase it with a sticker pack. This same sticker sheet and some of the Designer Series paper you will find in the actual Scrapbooking Workshop kit. They only give you exactly what you need in this kit to be able to create these 3 layouts, okay? So you can get the Designer Series paper on its own. You can get it with a coordinating sticker sheet. You can purchase the stamp set if you like to do stamping on your scrapbooking. Then these have larger stamps and larger fonts. And then there is also a coordinating cardstock pack as well. And you get 2 sheets of each of these coordinating colours, which you can see at the bottom of page 70. Now, if you look really closely, it tells you here that these products coordinate with the celebratory Sips Suite collection, which you can find online. This is an online exclusive. So the celebratory Sips Suite collection, you will not see in a printed version in a catalogue. You will need to go to my website where the online exclusives are, or you can just type in the word celebratory Sips and everything that coordinates in that range will come up. So that is a different suite, which I ran through last week. So you do get those added products, which just help you have a little bit more diversity. And that's how I ended up with the embossing folders, the gold mesh ribbon, the little holographic gems, and also the Cheers and Sips stamp set with the coordinating dies. Okay, so I did demonstrate these last week. I ended up purchasing that whole suite because I knew that I would use this a lot because we take a lot of photos of celebrations, and I'm going to share the 3 layouts with you now from the Scrapbooking Workshop kit that coordinate with celebratory Sips. So this is layout number 1. I've got these in memory protectors because I've actually got some flip flaps on here. This layout is called Summer Fun. So you can see it's really bright, it's vibrant. This was a camping trip that we took not last summer but the summer before over to York Peninsula and Port Rickaby. And as soon as I saw this big title, Summer Fun, and these big iced lemonades, we had such a fun time. The boys actually bought some hard lemonades and we made these big cocktail jugs. Now, please drink responsibly. This is just a fun photo, okay? I promise you, I didn't drink that many hard solo cans. We were just being silly. We were drinking out of the red cups. We were like, welcome to our fraternity party. So we were definitely having lots of summer fun here. We did some beach driving. We went to Watsakawi Brewery. We took the kids on some beach walks. We went swimming. Maddie was singing some songs with the guitar at nighttime around the campsite. So just such a really fun, vibrant layout. And this is it. One whole week of camping, scrapbooked on that one layout from the Celebrate Together kit. This is layout number 2. I will take this one out of the memory protector because there is no flip flap there. So this is layout number 2. I've added in an extra photo here, and then this big sticker embellishment I've just moved up, and I've been able to get another photo here. You can see I've got a flip flap here for this layout. This was, you can see we have lots of celebrations, right? This was a joint birthday for myself and my girlfriend Debbie. Our birthdays are just a couple of weeks apart, and I organised a fun day out for us at one of my favourite wineries at McLaren Vale. It's called Chalk Hill. And we had the gin tasting, and we had the wine tasting, and we ate all of the yummy food from the cucina. Just such a great fun day out. And straight away when I saw this beautiful palette, I knew that the fresh freesia was going to go just beautifully with my girlfriend's dress here. You can see some of these gorgeous pink and purple tones in the photos. I knew it was going to just look amazing. So that is layout number 2. And this is layout number 3. Can you see a little bit of a pattern here? It's all of the same group of friends. This one I'm going to take out of the memory protector and show you close up. This is where I've done the heat embossing. You can see that there is some gold just on the top of these cute little cocktail and highball glasses here. We've done the gold embossing here. So I'm going to be demonstrating that to you in August. You'll need some gold embossing powder, and you will need a Versamark stamp head. This is a clear ink pad that you're going to create translucent images, which is great for embossing. Gold embossing powder, and then a heat gun. So you'll find all of those items in the online catalogue. This is layout number 3. You can see here I've actually added in an extra photo here and moved one up here, and then I've got some flip flaps here. This was a girlfriend's 50th birthday dinner. And quite often I take lots of photos when we're out for everyone. I send all these photos to her, a special occasion. Really tricky to get all of the couples on the one layout. So I love using the collage apps where I can put everyone on the one photo. And I've done that for both the couples and then also all of the yummy food we had. I've got a flip flap here with a photo of the boys, a flip and one here for the girls. So just a really fun layout there. Again, I've actually added an extra photo at the top and just cut off the top of the sticker here. This was actually meant to be a huge big sticker cluster. But if I can, I prefer to get additional photos on. And then what I haven't used here with this sticker, I can use that in another layout there. Okay. So I hope that you love this beautiful scrapbooking workshop kit and this paper suite as much as I do, and you can see why I wanted to start it early and share this with you all through August. The other reason why I was so keen to get these layouts done sooner rather than later is the celebratory SIPs Suite collection, which is an online exclusive, actually dropped in May. And obviously online exclusives are while supplies last. I know it's been very popular, so I wanted to start sharing this with you sooner rather than later, because that suite collection coordinates with the scrapbooking workshop kits and also coordinates with the scrapbooking from scratch range as well. Okay. So I hope you've enjoyed my Technique Tuesday class today as well, ladies. I will definitely be posting links to the Colour Coach. And I've also got this really fun free guide, which I'll also be posting to our Facebook group. Stampin' Up made this for us, and I've actually downloaded it and then I've laminated it. And this gives you different color combinations. So if you're someone that struggles and needs a little bit more confidence in coordinating your colors together, you might just pick one color that you really like Secret Sea or Cloud Cover in this instance, and you can see some different color combinations it gives you. You can pick one particular color theme from your photos, and you can go through. If there's lots of pinks, you can come to where the bubble bath is and go, well, I could do this color combination, this one or this one. So I am going to post this free file to my Facebook group for you, and I hope that that gives you some support in coordinating your colors. Thank you all so much for watching today, ladies. Have a great week, and I can't wait to see what you come up with this week. Bye for now.